Bonjour and hello. Welcome back to another episode of Hello Redlow. I'm your host, Terry Mullen, and I'm so happy you're here. Listen in today to one of my favorite episodes I've done so far. It's an interview with my dear friend Catherine Gauthier from France. You will hear compelling stories about doing hard things, overcoming them, and finding purpose and friendship along the way. So sit back, put on your headphones, and listen in. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Hello Redlow podcast. I'm here with my wonderful, precious friend, Catherine.
Hello, everybody.
Say hello.
Hi.
We have met through Kathy Heller's program and Made to Do This. We met in the large group, and now we are in a small group together where we spend a lot of time together, and we've really had the privilege and blessing to get to know one another. I was the only American coming into this group, and you all embraced me, and it has been the biggest gift to get to know all of you. And Catherine, you are just such a love with a big heart, and you all are going to hear that in her. She lives in France. She has started her own podcast called Come to France with Me, which is wonderful. And you're going to hear her story and that she lived in the US and France as well. And so please welcome my wonderful friend, Catherine.
Oh, thank you very much, Terry. I really appreciate it. And I'm very excited to have this conversation with you as well.
Well, thank you. And for those of you, I will put it in my show notes, but you can find Catherine on her podcast, Come to France with Me. And she posts each week. You will hear wonderful stories about her life in France, the way she sees it through her lens, the wonderful museums and places that she goes. We get to be completely immersed in that culture. And then she also does her gratitude. And so share a little bit about that. Her background is actually graphic design. And now she has launched this. We're both doing these midlife journeys. So share a little bit about what Come to France with Me is for you.
So thank you very much for the introduction. Come to France with Me was born out of my frustration, really, to bridge the gap between having this bicultural life. And I lived in the US for a long time, for 21 years. I moved back to France to be closer to family 4 years ago, and I've been missing my American life, really. So this project is a way for me to reconnect with my American friends and make new friends, make new connections, still be a part of the American life somehow by sharing my French experience. And my goal is to help people who can't travel still have a glimpse of French life and visit museums and visit places vicariously through me somehow. If I can give a little window into the French experience, that's my goal. And then another project that has nothing to do with Come to France with Me is on gratitude. I started having a gratitude practice 11 years ago now, in 2010.
Wow.
And it's really important to me in my daily life. So I put a little dash of that in the podcast as well.
Which is wonderful. And I think so much of who you are comes through this, and people can find you on Instagram as well. But I have found for myself, I have never been to France. And so when I hear you tell these stories, you immediately immerse me there with you, walking through the museum. And I almost don't even want to look at the pictures because I envision it in my mind. And you do such a great job. You are a writer, I think, in your heart and soul anyway. So the way you describe these things through your eyes is really so remarkable. And I literally feel like I'm right there with you. And I look so forward to the day we actually get to meet in person. But you do such a great job with that. And then how appropriate for the gratitude to come in at all that we've been through in these last 18 months, right? You do a great job with that as well.
For sure. Especially now that we've reached midlife, we have gone through so many ups and downs and heartaches, loving somebody and losing somebody, and many people now. I think the more you advance in age, the more you realize what's really important at the core. And also, you really have to be proactive in terms of keeping a positive outlook. And I think a gratitude practice helps with that a lot.
Well, how appropriate. Now you guys can hear why I love her so much. Here we are for us, in November, and just being thankful for so many things anyway. And that was the other reason that it's a great segue, talking about doing hard things when we've had, love and loss, both personally, professionally. So I really want to connect with that a little bit in your life. And if you don't mind, I'd really love to have you share some of these hard things that you've been through with your own life, living in the US, having such a love for that, having a love and the failure with that. And then we'll go into you now being back in France, but share a little bit about your story, how you ended up in the US to begin with.
Yes. So I've always loved English, first of all. And I think we have Michael Jackson to thank that for.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I loved Thriller when it came out in 1983. It was on an LP on which the words of the songs were written. I don't know if you guys remember that. Some of you might think, what is she talking about? But at the time, the words were written on the inside sleeve of the LPs, and I wanted to know what he was saying. So I'm 12, 13 years old, and I'm with my little dictionary on my little bed, trying to figure out what Michael Jackson is saying. So that's how English started for me.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
then with my first paid vacation, with my first job, I wanted to go to New York because I've heard so many things about New York, and it was kind of a love and hate relationship from even before going there. And I was hearing so many horrible things, and I wanted to see it for myself. So I booked a flight and I went to New York one summer. And then I slept at the Y for 2 days, but the summer in New York, there's a high demand for the Y, so you can only stay for 3 nights, I think it was at the time. I had to find a hotel, and my budget was very limited. As we know, New York is very expensive.
Yeah.
So I found the cheapest hotel I could find in Spanish Harlem, and it was horrible. And I couldn't open the door to my room. It was all messed up. So
Wow.
I asked some guy in the lobby who, please help me open my door. And that's how I met my husband.
No.
Yes, because he showed me how to open it and I still couldn't figure it out. So he said, well, I guess I'm going to have to be there every time you open your door. And he gave me his business card. And yeah, that's how it all started.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. I didn't know that backstory. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was really hard though. When I arrived with my suitcase, I arrived on Halloween actually. So New York City on Halloween night, you can imagine the mayhem and people on the street. And that's very foreign to me because we don't really celebrate Halloween here.
Wow.
I could go on and on, but it was very difficult. The first few months, it was so different. New York City, you know what it is. It's nonstop. So yeah.
But I am marvel at that, Catherine, really, to think about leaving your home of origin, going to the US, and you're very sophisticated anyway. I mean, I can see you being in New York as well. And you are so intrigued by people. What a great place for you to land, right? So, I mean, and you have this incredible sense of adventure. That's remarkable, to leave your home of origin, to go to New York, a place you've never even been. And there you are, you land there, and you stay for how long?
We
How many
stayed in
years?
New York for 4 years.
Okay.
And I, worked. I had, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
We all go through this at some point.
Yeah.
So little jobs and and then we got married, we got the paperwork done, I got my green card. I became a citizen. So these are all, I try to see things as an adventure, basically. That's the bottom line. Even if many times everyday life can be super hard and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? This is terrible. I can't do this. Yet we persevere, because what else can you do? The pool of growing is larger than the pool of giving up. So you keep going because you want to evolve.
I just marvel. I really do. I mean, I think about the amount of courage it took to do that, to go there. And you were in the US for
Mhm.
how many years?
21 years.
21 years. Oh, you said that in the beginning. Yeah. I just incredible. And then you guys left and moved to, did you move to California after that?
Yes, we moved to
Okay.
San Diego. After 4 years, I just couldn't take it anymore.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my husband really liked New York. He liked the hustle and bustle nonstop, but I couldn't take it anymore, the weather, everything. So we moved to San Diego. We had a big dog at the time, and San Diego was the place where we were able to find an apartment. We would have preferred going to San Francisco, but that didn't work out. So San Diego, we stayed there for 10 years. We ended up buying a house and all that stuff. And then we got divorced. And then I moved by myself to San Francisco, and I lived there for 7 years
Wow.
before moving back to France. And
Okay.
I love the San Francisco. That's
Wow.
just,
And this, I mean, it's amazing how much we have in common. I mean, because I have kids that live in New York and now I live in California.
mm.
So my dream is to go to France and to be there. And so going through that divorce too was really hard because
Ah,
now
yes.
now you are in the US, you love it. It's become a part of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And not only now you're leaving behind a relationship that failed, and
Mm-hmm.
share a little bit more about that. There was other loss there with your home and financial, which I
Yes.
can really relate to some of this. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're faced with now going back to your home of origin. So let's just dive into that a little bit. Share a little bit about that. You went through this divorce.
So
Um,
that's around 2000. It was the midterm elections, right after the midterms. So 2000, end of 2006, early 2007.
okay.
And that's totally, well, I was going to say that's totally my fault. The divorce was my bad in terms of starting the whole thing, saying it has to stop. But, you know, as you know, being married is difficult
Yep.
for many reasons. Anyway, so divorce, and then which meant in practical terms, my husband moved out and I stayed in the condo because we had the two big dogs at the time. And there was no way I could find an apartment that would take them as a rental. So I ended up paying. And also, before that, this is San Diego in 2005. I don't remember. I don't know if you remember what the real estate market was at the time, but
Yeah.
so
Yep.
we rented for a long time. And I was actually, one of my jobs was being an assistant for a real estate agent.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was immersed in that whole world also of real estate. And I could see, everything skyrocketing. And we kept saying, if we don't buy now, we'll never get anything. We have to buy now. If we don't get in, we will never get in. So we basically bought at the highest of the market, and we didn't really we both have good jobs and we were okay, but it's still San Diego, in 2005. So we ended up buying a condo, basic 2-bedroom townhouse for $299,000. And we barely had enough savings to pay for the paperwork, basically. So we did 100% mortgage, two mortgages, consequently, a HELOC and a real mortgage. And then we had to pay the HOA fees and the taxes and, everything that's involved with. So this whole 100% financing, I highly not recommend it, but
Wow, Catherine.
live and learn. Anyway,
But
my
also
point
you,
is I
oh, go ahead.
stayed in the condo after we split up, and there was the vet bills. I had two dogs that were at the end of their lives at the time also.
Oh,
Basically, it was everything hit the fan at the same time. My husband moved out, so one income to pay for the 2 mortgages, the HOAs, the vet bills. They both had cancer. So it was the worst struggle, really. A lot of crying happened in that time. But once again, what can you do? You continue going to work, getting some income going to pay for all these bills. And then at some point, I realized I was only paying interest on the house. I will never start paying the principal. So this is using a cup to get out of a sinking ship. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And then when did you leave San Diego? Because that's right when we had the housing market crash, right? During that time,
exactly.
Right? So you were in the midst of that as well then.
And Obama started the program to help homeowners. I don't remember what it was called now, but I didn't qualify because I was on time with my payments. So it was only for people who had missed payments. And I couldn't sell the house because nobody was going to buy this house. The prices had tanked. So I was actually advised by my mortgage company to stop paying. That's the only way I would get any kind of help.
Wow.
So I defaulted on the mortgages to be able to sell the house.
Wow.
And I sold it for $79,000.
No.
Can you imagine?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I want everybody just to hear. First of all, I mean, I'm feeling fairly emotional. I really relate. When our walls fall down in our life, they fall down. And in those moments when we really find ourselves, and I just want to thank you, first of all, for having the courage to be here with me, share your story. And I think of all the people, even right now, with everything that everybody's going through and with COVID and the loss, we've had loss in so many ways. We've had spiritual, emotional, financial, and physical loss. And I think this story resonates now today. And I thank you so much for showing up for you, for me, for other women that need to hear this, because
you're welcome.
It's empowering. And
within that time frame, I just remembered I also got hepatitis A during those 2 years. I don't know what happened. I think I ate out somewhere. And a couple of weeks later, I start feeling weak, like I have the flu. And I'm realizing I'm all yellow. What's going on with my skin? My eyeballs were yellow. My skin was bright yellow. I have some pictures. And I didn't have health insurance at the time because that's another thing.
Yeah.
So I waited for an appointment at a free clinic. I took some time off from work. And the lady said, well, you have hepatitis A. So I was completely out. It was no energy at all. I just had energy to walk the dogs and go to bed and go to work. But once again, you continue, you don't have a choice. The life goes on. If you have children, the children need to eat. They need to go to school. If you have dogs, the dogs need to be walked no matter what. But it's really during those times that I'm an introspective person anyways, but I really did a lot of introspection. And it's during those darkest days, they talk about the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
And that's during that time that I was finally able to define my purpose in life. And that had been something I had been struggling since I wasn't a teenager. I wanted to know, why am I here? What am I doing here? And finally, during those worst times, I was writing in my journal, my purpose is to share love and joy. And I was so far out from what I was living at the time because, I was alone. My dogs were sick. I was sick. I was losing the house. Everything was just shitty. But somehow in my journal came out, my purpose is to share love and joy. How do I do that?
And you're doing it now. And the only way I believe that we can actually help others find that love and joy and we can share our mission is when we've been to the lowest and darkest moments ourselves. Because if we've
Yeah.
never been there, we can't connect on a human level, on a heart level.
Mm,
We can't have that empathy and really
mm,
understand what that feels like. And I think it gives us, like you share, it gives us such greater appreciation for the simple things in life, for
mm,
humanity. Um, and that's what you're doing now. And that's what
mhm,
people will hear. They'll hear it in your voice and the way you see the world with your eyes and with your heart. It comes out, Catherine. It comes
mm,
out, and we get to live that through you because you have such gratitude for life and you have such a passion to share the simple things, the way a croissant tastes,
yeah.
the the painting that you see on the wall, the architecture, the way you see it, you feel that so
Oh, I'm
deeply.
glad. Thank you.
um yeah. And I believe so much when we go through these hard things, that's we get to make our message, right, as Kathy says.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
um
And that's how we connect. I mean, to me, that's the most important part about the human experience is the connection, the true connection.
yeah.
And that's why it's share love and joy is the perfect. That's what it is. That's what I'm here for. That's what I want to do. That's what makes life worth living to me.
Yeah, 100%. And here we are. I'm sitting here in California and you are in France, and we have this wonderful connection. We've been able to get to know each other, pretty intimately over these last many
Yes.
months. And it's in these moments, as much as I get frustrated with technology, that I'm equally
Mm,
grateful because we can have our
mm,
Zoom meetings and our weekly Zoom calls and these intense
yes.
conversations. And you get to show me around your apartment and you get to show me the streets of France. And it's delightful.
Mm,
And I think that's another message to share, that the world is not as big as we all think it is, right?
for sure. Yeah. It's
um,
especially now we can meet anytime, anywhere. So we need to make it worth it though. Let's not waste time with all the petty, all the differences and yeah, all the petty stuff.
so you are in California, and then you're kind of brought to this crossroad. Your dogs also pass away, really hard time. I mean, everything, like, and I
Yes,
relate to this. The walls just came, everything. You were left with
exactly.
just
So
you.
I lose my marriage, I lose my dogs, I lose my house. The last thing that's holding me there is my job. I did have a very good job, thankfully, that allowed me to pay for the vet bills. But I had been there for 5 years at the time, and I was really feeling like I had more than explored all that I could learn there. So I decided, okay, it's time to go. This is enough. I've been here 10 years. Let's go see what's going on in San Francisco. So I rented a truck and I put my stuff in there. A couple of friends helped me uh, move, and I found a roommate in
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco,
Mm-hmm.
and I moved to the Sunset, which was a whole different life. And I loved San Francisco. I had my little Honda Civic, and I was driving around San Francisco saying, I can't believe I'm here. I'm in San Francisco. I was just driving everywhere up and down the hills, and I just loved it, loved it, loved it.
So probably kind of the best of all your worlds.
Yes,
You've got the excitement of the city of New York, and you've got the
yes,
weather of California, and the
yes,
mountains, and all
yes,
that, and the wonderful food,
yes.
and the
And the
culture.
forest,
Yeah.
the food, the culture, yeah, everything. San Francisco to me was like the dream city that had everything I loved in one
Mm.
place.
So then what happens after that? You moved to San Francisco, and then how did you end up back in France?
So a lot happened in San Francisco too. I had ups and downs, and I had times where I didn't work and I had shitty jobs and I have had better jobs. I ended up working for Leapfrog, the educational toy company,
Yep.
and I was doing quality assurance for the content of francophone content there
Mm-hmm.
for the French products. And then, unfortunately, so my whole family is in France. I was the only one living abroad, and my sister's husband unexpectedly passes away from cancer really fast within a couple of months. At the time, my sister was pregnant.
Hmm.
Here she is, 8 months pregnant, and her
Wow.
husband passes away. He
Wow.
was really trying to hold on as much as he could, and he went through so much, but he wasn't able to stay until the baby arrived. So I took a leave of absence from Leapfrog to go help my sister with her newborn. And I was there for 2 months when my boss at Leapfrog said, give me a ring, I need to tell you something. So I called, the HR lady was on the call as well. And
Wow.
basically he announced to me that Leapfrog was purchased by VTech, their competitor, and that many people were let go, among which myself, which was kind of good timing in a way, because I really fell in love with my baby nephew. And my first thought was, great, I can stay longer here with my sister and my nephew and help them settle into their new life.
So let's go back to that. So now you're faced with another life decision. Here you are, you're
Yes.
now helping your sister who's, young, first baby. You're trying to help
Mhm.
her. And now you're faced with another life decision. Now you've lost your job.
Yes, but at some point I need to go back home to San Francisco because my boyfriend is waiting for me. My life is there. I have a new boyfriend, we had been together for 4.5 years, 5 years at the time. Yeah, 4.5 years. So we were living in the house and we both had jobs, blah, 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 our lives, dancing. So I come back home so I was gone from February to May, come back home in May. And that's where another big depression arose for me, because I had fallen in love with my nephew. I don't have children myself. I
Mhm.
had never found the person I would feel I would want to be the father of a child. So, and it was a conscious decision, but it was still painful not to be a mother, because I feel I I love children, obviously. So I come back to San Leandro. I don't have a job. I don't have a baby to hold all day long while my sister does her things, which is basically what I had been doing while helping her. I would take care of the baby during the day while she had all this mess of paperwork to do, because she was a young widow, and my brother-in-law was in the military, so there was a lot of paperwork to deal with, selling their house, moving, all that stuff. So I'm holding the baby all day long, and all of a sudden, no baby, no job. I'm home all day. My boyfriend is at work all day, so I fall into depression basically,
Wow.
because I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing here. I have a big part of it too is guilt of being alive, really. I have to say that was a big part of my depression, is that I'm over it now, but for a long time I felt, why is this young person, he was an officer in the army. He had done the equivalent of West Point for
Oh,
France.
wow.
He was super smart. He was ready for a very successful career as an officer. And all of a sudden, and no smoking, no drinking, sports, and very healthy. And he gets cancer and dies. How does that happen?
Right. Right.
And me, I'm not anything. I'm a failure. I don't have a job. I don't have children. I don't have a husband. I don't, what am I doing in life? So really a big depression that lasted a long time.
Did you go into, because you had kind of another crisis there. So did you go into therapy, or, how did you come out of that? Because now
Um,
you're dealing with
I,
this other
I,
loss. You've got
yeah,
a family loss and someone that you really cared about, and you're seeing your sister suffer.
yeah,
And I'm just,
I did.
I'm marveling at all that you've been through. This is incredible. And I hope people really hear this. So now you have experienced this loss where now your brother-in-law has passed away, and there's an incredible
Yeah.
amount of guilt. Looking back, how did you overcome that?
Time.
Time.
There's really,
Yeah.
there's no magic. So this happened, let's see, I came back to San Leandro in May. I did a bit of work for a friend who also got laid off from Leapfrog, but he got a startup going, so he needed some graphic design. Lost on the timing, but I think at that time I was also called by a temp agency asking me if I wanted to work at Apple. There was a temporary mission doing quality assurance at Apple, so I did that. That was kind of a nice diversion, I would say. I enjoyed the work, but basically I was depressed. I was just crying most of the time. And so I'm thinking around my birthday, by October, November, I decided, okay, I need to see a professional because I'm not getting out of this hole. So I saw a psychologist for a few sessions, and she suggested it might be a good idea to get on some medication just to get to a baseline where I could really think, because at that time I couldn't even have a rational conversation about this without just crying and not falling apart.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult decision because I really don't like the idea of chemicals in my brain. Additional, we have chemicals in our brain, of course, but man-made pills to help my brain. It took me a little while to accept it. And then in the meantime, I decided to go to France for Christmas. I hadn't spent Christmas in France for 20 years.
Wow.
So I thought, well, this is a good time to see what it would be like to be in France for Christmas, see my sister and my nephew, my family and all that. And that might give me some clarity. So I got on the antidepressants and I booked my flight to go spend Christmas with my family. And there I got really clear that I need to be in France. This is the US adventure needs to stop for now. And I need to be close to my family. Unfortunately, that meant leaving my boyfriend. And I have a lot of guilt about that too, because, he didn't ask for anything. And he has his life in California, his parents, his family, his work. So there was no way, and he doesn't speak French. And so we decided to separate. And that was another loss, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
And I moved back to France. So I did the whole shipping container with my stuff. And my little Honda Civic stayed back, unfortunately. I had to let it go. I left it with my boyfriend. I was really upset because it was 19 years old and I really wanted to have it for 20 years, but I didn't see it to be 20. Anyway, so yeah, I moved back right in time for my nephew's first birthday on February 15th, 2017. And so it's been 4.5 years of rebuilding a life in France. And that in itself has been a whole ordeal, I have to say.
Yeah. And then trying now to come back and be a part of that culture as well. And it's just interesting because I share my previous podcast with my husband and the amount of depression that he went through, someone that had never been on antidepressants before either, and got to a point where he absolutely had to. I mean, that's a whole other topic, right? And what we have to do.
Yeah.
And so many people right now, I mean, I definitely advocate for it because I think there's definitely a need in these things that we're all going through right now. And I always advise people to get a counselor, to go to a therapist or find a coach, someone to talk to help you through these hard times. But I also want people just to feel the love and the inspiration that no matter where we are in life, we can do these hard things, that we are wired for hard things, that humanity, we are strong and we're stronger than we really are, right, Catherine? We are stronger than we ever give ourselves credit for. And I loved you before this podcast. I love you even more now. I think you are an amazing role model for women. I think you're an
Thank you.
amazing voice for people overcoming hard things.
Yeah.
And, you know, you lived wherever you were. Coming to the US was a risk. Going back to France is a risk. Starting a
Mm.
business is a risk.
Mm.
And you have
And loving is a risk.
and loving.
I
Yeah.
have to say another big thing that was super helpful to me was finding in San Francisco meditation meetings and the Buddhism. I don't want to say faith. To me, it's more of a philosophy, a way of living, a way of viewing what life really is. And that's super helpful to me. And if I can, I would like to thank one of the teachers in San Francisco. His name is Vinny Ferraro from the group The Dharma Punks. And this group, I didn't realize at the time, I just went there because it was closest to my place. But the Dharma Punks is a Buddhist group geared to help people in recovery from addiction.
Wonderful.
And I'm not addicted, but I realized after a few meetings, oh, this is a group for recovering addicts. But it doesn't matter. This is super helpful. And Vinny Ferraro always says, right now it's like this. And that to me is super profound. It seems like a very simple phrase to say, but it's the whole philosophy of life of right now it's like this. This is what things are. You have to look at reality, what you are faced with, and how do you deal with it. But there's no sense in fighting your circumstances. Of course, you can strive for your goals. That's a given. But you cannot reach your goals if you don't acknowledge where you are. And the sentence right now, it's like this. I've repeated so many times when I'm in the throes of despair, and you just sit on your cushions for 5 minutes and close your eyes and you just want to be dead. But no, you think right now it's like this, and in 5 minutes it will be different, and in a month it will be different. So just be patient with yourself and know that it will change. That's just the way things are. It took me so long to learn that it's a wheel, the wheel keeps turning. You have ups and downs, and you know it intellectually, but to really live it when you're so depressed you don't want to be alive, you have to put a post-it note on your wall, to say, hey, this is temporary. One of my friends told me suicide is a what's the word? A permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Oh, that's so good.
And yeah, right now maybe it sucks, but it won't suck forever. And another moment it will be wonderful, and it won't be wonderful forever. So it all goes back to gratitude, actually. Just do your list, even if you don't write 5 things I'm grateful for every day, but have a notepad somewhere with a running list of all the good things in your life. And when life sucks, just read it and remember all the wonderful things that you lived. And those moments will happen again. You will eat a delicious ice cream, or you will see a beautiful painting, or you will walk and feel the wind in your hair, something.
I'm almost speechless because I knew this was going to be an amazing podcast interview discussion with a friend. I had no idea what I was in store for. And I feel like, repeat that phrase again, is just like this. Is that what you said?
Right now, it's like this.
Right now, it's just like this. Right now, it's like this.
It's like this.
I mean, that is, I mean, I feel that in my bones. I just did a post about the sky and being present in the moment and watching it, because in a moment it's gone, it changes. And we have that connection, you and I, about the things we see. And I have to pause and just remember to look at the sky and what it does to my soul. It just feeds my soul and it reminds me who I am and why I'm here.
Yes.
And this conversation, I know you're a teacher at heart. She also teaches English as well. And she's a writer. And there's so much depth to you, Catherine. Like just listening to you is like oil for my soul. Like it's amazing.
Thank you, Terry. I'm glad.
I mean, what you just said, that right there is just incredible.
Yeah.
And we're going to put in the notes the reference you just made from your teacher in San Francisco. We'll put all that in there for people that this might reach someone in San Francisco.
Yes.
And if someone needs to feel that connection, how amazing is that?
Yes.
I want to keep going, but I almost feel like this is such an amazing place to pause.
Yes, it is.
And let people just absorb everything that you've said. It's like a great teacher. I thank you. I hope you realize what you're doing in the world. I hope you realize and see the joy and the love that you're bringing with your eyes and your heart and your words.
You're making me cry, Terry.
Because that's truth. That's why you feel that, because it's absolutely true. So I want to encourage all of you, please follow Catherine. Please pronounce your last name for me so I don't do it incorrectly. Catherine
Gauthier.
Gauthier.
Catherine Gauthier.
Gauthier. I always say Gauthier, so I get it wrong. Gauthier.
But my American friends call me Cat G.
Cat G.
Cat G.
Cat G. Oh, gotcha. Cat G. So you can find her on Come to France with Me on Instagram. I will put all this in the show notes, and then also on her podcast. Same. You will be in for such a treat. And as you heard her today, all her love and her passion, it all comes out in the podcast, and you will go on an adventure with her. And thank you, my sweet friend, for being here. Thank you for opening your arms and welcoming me as the only American in your group. My heart and soul have been opened just in that experience as well. And I'm thankful that the world is connected the way it is, and that there can be a bridge across the seas through Zoom. But you're a love, and I thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for blessing all those that are listening today.
Thank you very much,
Au revoir.
Terry. I love you. Au revoir.
À
bientôt.
Thank you so much for listening in today. I hope this episode blessed your heart and soul as much as it did mine. It was a wonderful interview for me to do for so many reasons. And as you heard in Catherine's voice, she is an amazing teacher, full of inspiration, love, kindness, compassion, and inspiration to overcome hard things. Please listen into her podcast, Come to France with Me. I have linked it here in the show notes below, along with her website and Instagram. You will learn so much from her. I'd love to know what your takeaway was today, so please send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until we meet again, may you know that you are seen, you are heard, you are loved, and you belong, and may God bless you. This is Redlow.